Senator from Bristol, Norfolk, Senator Feeney.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate you recognizing me through you and to the members. I want to, first of all, thank the gentleman who just spoke, the gentleman from Springfield, my good friend, who's carrying this amendment, has been a champion for HCECs for very valuable reasons, as he just articulated. Excuse me, and also my colleague from Northampton, the Vice Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, who has been championing this amendment as well. Madam President, we just heard the previous speaker talk about how valuable these HCECs are across the Commonwealth. This amendment, although it doesn't go all the way, facing serious economic headwinds, we know two things. We know that we have to make tough decisions, but also how valuable these programs are as we try and triage crisis after crisis across Massachusetts. This amendment will go a long way towards helping these HCECs stay solvent, stay open, and stay available to our constituents. Madam President, we just heard, and I want to underscore, how the HCECs and their staff provide direct assistance to families and individuals in crisis, as well as provide critical information and education about improving housing situations. They help in finding suitable housing for people across the spectrum. They negotiate with landlords, talk to landlords about some of the issues that they face, and they help people in buying or staying in their homes. Across Massachusetts, as we just heard, there are 9 agencies that provide trained staff who are available to do this work. They all do amazing work. I want to give a special shout out and take a moment of personal privilege to thank NeighborWorks Housing Solutions, who do incredible work in our district and in the region, and for raising this as an important issue. The need for these services, Madam President, is continuing to increase. We know that the need isn't going away. And as HCEC staff are taking calls and walk-in appointments from the elderly, from people facing homelessness, and those who are just otherwise struggling to navigate the system. I think as I look around this chamber, we can probably take a poll, and I think you would find 100% agreement from all of our staff members, especially our district staff and those that do casework, do amazing work on behalf of the Senate every day. They could attest to the importance of HCEC agencies across Massachusetts. We heard just yesterday from our colleague from Somerville regarding the alarming levels of seniors, especially that are facing housing insecurity, Madam President. Housing insecurity is just a fancy term for these folks, these seniors. They're jammed up and they're days away from living out in the street, from being forced to live in their cars. An alarming rise that I think many of us could probably tell some anecdotal stories from our district about seniors that help build our communities, that worked their entire lives, that served our cities and towns, that are struggling to find stable housing, literally living in their cars or bouncing around from family members to friends to find a place to live. HCECs are the front line in helping that particular cohort as well, Madam President. I think that is worthy of our investment. Our HCECs are the front door to providing access to many of the critical programs that we are funding in this budget. When we look at all the great things that we're funding, where we're putting our money to, all those programs, they're great, but not if they're not accessible, not if we can't help people navigate to those programs, and that's what these agencies and these HCECs do. But it's not just seniors. I mention that because that is one that probably crushes most of us and absolutely breaks our heart when we see that. But it's individuals and families from across the spectrum and all income levels. HCECs are free and open to the public. They receive help in financial coaching, and I hope that you all hear from me over these next 2 years in this session about financial literacy and financial coaching and making sure that we're giving people the resources to be able to build a life here in the Commonwealth, stay here, to be able to have some wealth, building capacity, and financial coaching, like I said, is key to all of that. They help with budgeting, housing searches, legal aid, and the list goes on and on and on. As I mentioned, Madam President, our HCECs are free and open to the public for all income levels. But in particular, as we look at those working families and low-income individuals in Massachusetts, that we should be concentrating on and focusing on as we triage these crises that we're facing in an economic downturn? We need to clearly understand one particular truth, that in Massachusetts, Madam President, it's expensive to be poor. In Massachusetts and across this country in general, it is expensive to be poor. And oftentimes, though, sometimes we have this mentality that people should just be able to figure it out, go online, do a Google search, pick yourselves up by the bootstraps and figure out a way to find yourself housing or a job or to budget or to pay your bills or to pay your medical debt or your college debt or whatever it may be. We have to understand that that's not always the lived experience for many, many people. That just getting a hold of those resources is difficult. So we rely on our HCECs to do so free to them, to open those doors, to provide that training, to provide that coaching, to provide that direct assistance, and to lift people up. That's what we focus on here in the Senate. I'm very, very proud of that work, Madam President. We know right now that the Commonwealth is in a housing crisis. We've talked about it many times over the last few days. And during a time of crisis, it's crucial that we are providing services to our most vulnerable residents to ensure that they are not left behind. Our HCECs do that on our behalf, on our constituents' behalf. They allow them to be able to get into those programs that we are funding this week. This amendment would make sure that they're not left behind. And although we have more work to do, maybe in future budgets and in future conversations, as we continue to try and appropriate for these programs, this helps. And once again, with Senator Gomez, our colleague, championing this, it's a step in the right direction, Madam President. And I hope this amendment is adopted. Thank you.